everyone, it's Priya here, and in today's video I'm going to be painting this little ghost and jack-o'-lantern using acrylic paints. So if you'd like to paint with me, grab your art supplies, your sketchbook, your canvas, and paint and draw with me, whichever one you like. Join me for this little creative session that we can have together. So I'm now working in my sketchbook, and I've painted the page black with black acrylic just to cover the entire page, and I'm just using a white pastel pencil just to get the outlines and the basic idea of what the faces are going to be like on the jack-o'-lantern as well as the ghost. A lot of this is going to get covered over with the acrylic paints once I start painting, but this is just for me to get an idea of what it's going to look like for my placement. So now I'm just going in with a white layer of paint just to cover the base, or to create the base layer for the little ghost. Now I did realize when I was painting that this was actually zinc white, and zinc white is much more transparent than titanium white. So I'm going to have to go over with a couple layers of titanium white so that I can get a solid white color for this little ghost. And I am using a round brush for the painting. You can use whichever brush you feel comfortable with. You could even use a filbert, that can work too. I wouldn't recommend using a flat brush because it may be difficult or harder to get the round around edges. So I would highly recommend a round or a filbert, preferably a round brush. But this round brush is getting a bit old, so it is splitting a bit. So I'm having a problem where it splits and it puts paint in places I don't want it to be. But it still works, so I'm just going ahead and using it. So I'm also painting the base of the jack-o'-lantern. So you can see I'm painting with the pumpkin with an orange, and the orange paint is also quite transparent. So I'm gonna have to paint over a couple of layers. Now in between, as I'm painting, I am leaving the one side to dry before I go over with another layer, because if you try to paint over a wet layer, you are going to lift some of that paint up, and you will see that later on when I'm painting the jack-o'-lantern. You will see some of that paint lift up because it wasn't entirely dry. I'm trying to use a lot of the paint straight out of the tube and not using a lot of water. That's just because I want to have an opaque covering on the painting. Like this is where you can see I'm painting over another layer for the jack-o'-lantern. Now I'm going to go in and paint with some gray. I'm using some Payne's gray. That's just to get some of the shadow areas for the little ghost on the sheet. So it's all for the creases in the sheet. So you can see I'm using the Payne's gray with a hint of some Prussian blue. But I did go a bit too heavy with my hand there, and I went a bit too dark on some places with the gray. So I am going over with some white, and I'm using some zinc white here just so that I can smooth off those creases, but as well as not covering completely the gray that I put down. So now I'm painting another layer over the pumpkin for the jack-o'-lantern. I'm using a lighter mix of orange to cover the jack-o'-lantern, just to make sure that it is quite solid, the color. You can see there is where I went over the center of the pumpkin with the brush, and the paint wasn't entirely dry, and it basically lifted off some of the paint. So that's what I mean, is you need to let your paint dry completely before adding your next layer to avoid that. So now I'm moved on to the background while my little ghost and pumpkin are drying, and I'm just painting in with a flat brush. I'm layering in some color for the background. Now at this point I'm not worried about the directions of the paint or the directions of the strokes, but I did notice that because this page wasn't gessoed and I just went over with acrylic paint, this sketchbook is not meant for acrylic paint, it's meant for ink, but it works well for all mediums. I've used all mediums in it: gouache, watercolor, ink, acrylics, everything works fine in it. But I just wanted to add a smoother background, and I wasn't getting that because the paper wasn't gessoed, so I didn't have a able to blend smoothly. So what I decided to do is add layers of paint and use my mop brush to just smoothly blend it out for the background. Now it is looking a bit messy, but I am going to come in later on and smoothen it up a bit more, and get that smooth look for the background and add some design for the background as well. Now what I started doing, initially I was laying down the paint and then using the mop brush to brush over, but then I realized that I think I need to use a little bit of paint on the mop brush and then blend it through. So I was doing that for the background now as I'm painting. Remember, when you're working with your mop brush, try not to submerge the mop brush entirely into water, because it's going to get completely wet and it takes ages to dry. So try to just use a little bit of water on the edge of it, or on the bristles right on the edge, and then use that to blend. Now I'm using a Posca paint pen, a black one, just to add the eyes and the mouth for the little ghosty. And I'm also now adding with a brush, I'm adding just the edges of the eyes. You can see I'm just adding some of that edges to the eyes, just to give it a bit of dimension and not just look like straight on black eyes. Now when you're looking at this video, you may think that the video is going very fast and the artwork took a short time to create, but it did take a while to create this artwork, and it's important that you realize that this video is sped up. So you can take however long you need to create your artwork and paint your artworks. It doesn't have to be done in the time 10-15 minutes. I just shortened it because of, or sped it up because of the video. I think it'll be too long, so that's why I sped it up. But when you are painting and creating art, realize that these videos are sped up, so you can take your time and take however long you need to create your artwork. So now I'm starting with the jack-o'-lantern, and I'm trying to, get the eyes in, and I'm going to go back and forth. You're going to see me moving back and forth here for quite a bit, trying to get that eyes, the nose, the mouth correct, or get it to a point where I'm happy with it. So you'll see me moving a lot, back and forth with this jack-o'-lantern, with the expression and the face. So you can see now I'm just painting in the stem. Now I thought the stem looked a little too pastel green, so I'm going to come back later on and tone that down a bit. But for now, I went in with some yellow to do the placement of the eyes. I'm going in with some black for the eyes, the nose, and also I decided to add some outlines for the mouth so that I can paint that in as well. Now here I am using a bit of water mixed with my acrylic, just so that it's not very thick and very dark. And then I'm just also touching up the areas that I didn't want to get covered with paint. Remember, with acrylics, it's very forgiving. You can just paint over any area that you need to redo. It's easy. You just paint over it and do it again. You can see now I painted some orange on the eyes and the mouth as well. And then I'm adding some of that yellow glow. And then I'm also adding a bit of a little eyes in the yellow eyes in the sockets of the jack-o'-lantern. And that's why I lighten it up with some orange, because it won't be so dark if there's this little light coming out from it. And then now I'm going in and adding some of the details of the pumpkin. Now you see certain places there on the top next to the stem, I went in a bit too dark with a very thick line. So I'm going to actually blend that in together with the background of the back or the side of the pumpkin, and it actually looks like it's a shadow area. So there's always ways for you to correct your artwork if you're not happy with it, where it actually looks like it's part of the painting and you never say that it's actually a mistake. So remember that also when you're painting, that you can always fix things or restart. So now I painted it in with a bit of yellow. Now I'm going in with another layer of some orange just to tone that yellow down. There you can see me toning down the green of the stem and just darkening those pupils or the little eyes of the jack-o'-lantern. Now you can see me just adding some eyes or shines to the eyes of the little ghost. Now I did use the Posca white paint pen, and then the one I tried to go a bit make it a bit brighter, but then I realized it's acrylic, so it is blending in again with the black, so I had to go in with a jelly roll. That also didn't work, so I finally went in with just some titanium white acrylic paint to add those little highlights in the eyes. Now also I'm working on the pumpkin or the jack-o'-lantern, And I'm just adding some of the details to the mouth, to the pumpkin itself, adding some of the shadow areas. And also adding a little bit more of the darker black to the jack-o'-lantern, just to make it look a bit more, should I say, menacing for Halloween. And then also adding some of that glow of the yellow to the ground. Now this is where I'm just going to start blending in some white around the pumpkin, around the ghost with my finger, just to get some smoother transition for the backgrounds, or details for the backgrounds, and just get it to look more like fog-like, and not let it look too stark with the lines that I painted in with the brush. And I'm also going to come in now after this and add some little lines or patterns to the background. It looks like little swirls of fog, or just little swirls all around the jack-o'-lantern as well as the ghost. So it looks like a little bit of fog around them, and it also has these patterns which gives a good element to the illustration. So there I'm adding on in all those little patterns, and I think that really adds a lot to the final illustration. So I guess that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope you got creative with me. If you have, don't forget to like and share. It really helps the channel out. If you'd like to see other art videos that I put up on my channel, then you could consider subscribing. And don't forget to hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on my next upload. So thanks again for watching. Till the next one. Bye.